Hey, David Bruce here, no 3 for all. This is 3 Craig Goldy Licks from 1985. And while Craig may not be a household name, he is definitely an underground legend of hard rock and metal from the 80s and 90s. He was an early member of the band Rough Cut. I think he actually replaced Jakey Lee in Rough Cut. Eventually joined the band Giuffria with Greg Giuffria's kind of solo project, and eventually joined forces with Dio. And I think he appears on 4 Dio studio albums and a couple live albums. But Craig's a really interesting guitarist. I have to admit, putting these lessons together and the material on the channel, I've stumbled upon several live solos from Craig Goldy, and they always kind of caught my interest because aside from the great playing and shredding, there was always something really unusual or different happening during his live solos. For instance, in 1988, I bet you didn't realize we were almost attacked by giant spiders, and the person we have to thank is Craig Goldy. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, check out this live footage from Dio in 1988 where Craig is literally battling a spider with his guitar. Now check out this clip from the same concert, and Craig very easily could have defeated that spider with just his picking hand, because Craig is just furiously, just shredding and tremolo picking through the shred guitar solo. Check this out. So before I get any comments or messages about it, I don't have any Dio or Giuffria on vinyl, so that's why Blue Oyster Cult's up on the wall, and I just recently got that album, so I stuck that up there. Just a heads up, so I know, Craig Goldy had nothing to do with Blue Oyster Cult. I just think that album cover and that album are really, really cool. First Lick features these E minor based pivot arpeggios, and definitely we've seen these from other players, like Steve Vai, Betancourt, the late great Gary Moore. You can definitely hear these in other players' styles, and here's Craig kind of giving his version of these pivot arpeggios. Something like this. And right there, we're basically starting with this E minor 11. So we're grabbing this B, D, E, and A, and that A is the 4th, which is also the 11th. And we're starting right there. So you're kind of doing this pivot on the top and the bottom, where you're basically moving this D, B, D, and then on the top you're moving this E, A, E. And you're kind of just moving back and forth. It's almost like you're trapped in this little 4-note pattern, like this. And then move that right here, and that's basically an E minor 7. There's D, E, G, and B, like this. And then move up again, there's E, G, B, and D, and that's E minor 7 once again, right there. So it's kind of like the first shape, but you're way up high, and also hitting that 22nd fret there, that D note on the high E. And right there, I just kind of end it with a bend, bending up to that E. I mean, you can end that however you want. So in the clip, Craig's actually using an overhand muting or dampening technique, and he's playing that lick like this. And that makes that way, way harder. I don't like playing it that way. And plus, it kind of obscures your view of your fret hand. And I was actually just playing it with a pick. So it looks cool like this, on stage, but it's actually, I think, more efficient and more practical to just play it in a regular style like this. And it's totally up to you. I mean, you can definitely use the overhand muting dampening technique. You could do a kind of a hybrid of the two. You could mute it over here. The next lick actually involves the guitar servant, And you might be wondering, what? And I told you that Craig had some interesting things happening during his live guitar solos. So check this clip out. It's kind of dark and a little grainy, but you can just kind of make it out and kind of see what I'm talking about. The next lick actually uses the guitar servant that I just showed in that little clip, and it's this overhand tapped idea in the footage, but I actually took it and just converted it to, fully fretted with the fret hand without tapping. And if you do that, it turns into kind of a Paul Gilbert approved, string skipping idea. Something like this. One more time here. Based around like G major for that first part, and you're basically doing this. You're grabbing this B, D, G, and that B up on the high E string right there. And then you kind of have this staggered, like little sequence right there at the end of that phrase, like this. And then you're going to move over a set of strings and it changes to D major, and you're going to do the exact same thing but right here. And there's that D major arpeggio right there. And there's the G major arpeggio right here, kind of Paul Gilbert, shapes. But you're really just kind of leaving the root note off and then just kind of playing with those middle four notes like this. Cool lick. I like phrases like that. The next lick's really cool, and it's kind of a variation of a Van Halen idea, his kind of random rolling harmonics, this idea. But what Craig's basically doing is he's created this melodic pattern using them, and it's really interesting. He's doing this. It almost sounds like a keyboard or some weird like computer program or something making a sound. It doesn't sound like a guitar, but he's basically grabbing along the D, the G, and the B strings, and he's doing this. Which sounds really weird if you just play it regular like that. What you're going to do is take your index finger there and very lightly lay across the D, G, and B strings along the 12th fret. And you want to lay your finger almost the same way you would lay your fret hand finger across there, to play a harmonic like that. But we're going to do it like this. Really cool, and it has this random sound to it, but there's also this melodic kind of motif that pops in. So cool. Here's a bonus lick from this live footage, and this is really cool. It's this classically influenced two-handed idea. There's a heavy Bach vibe here. And basically his fret hand is playing the melody while his picking hand is tapping out the bass notes. And it's something like this. Something like that. I'm still kind of working on it myself, but it's really challenging. To make this a little bit easier to see, let's separate the hands and focus on the individual parts, and then you can put them back together. So your picking hand, which is tapping, is going to basically walk down this A to G to F to E. And And then you hear it kind of bounce up F, G, G sharp, you know, back to that A. Something like that. And then your fret hand is playing this melody. One more time there, that's the first part. And right there, that's really tricky because you're kind of sliding on a position right there. And then ending on that B note. And then the second melody is... And that definitely has kind of a snake charmer, you know, exotic flavor. So both melodies slowly. And then what you want to do is slowly start putting those two parts together like this. Challenges like that, which I'm not really that comfortable playing those kind of ideas. I've definitely worked on some tapping, you know, ideas like that where you kind of have, you know, a bass line and a melody line or a chord and some kind of moving melodic parts. But that's really unusual. So I'm going to definitely spend some time with that just because it's so cool and it's so different. That's going to wrap this look at 3 Craig Goldy Licks from 1985. And Craig's a very interesting guitarist. You know, as I mentioned, I think at the beginning, you know, kind of left field, very experimental and different. But then he has this kind of, you know, classical side. There's the kind of shreddy, you know, rock and metal side. But then I definitely, you know, respect him just from, you know, kind of watching some of these, you know, live solos and some of these performances and stuff. It's like, wow, he was really kind of thinking of, you know, pushing his solo, you know, to make it more of a spectacle, like an event, you know, instead of just whipping out a bunch of licks and that's it. You know, the elements with the guitar servant and the spider battle and some of these other things that he's done. It's really interesting. It's brought out, you know, more of the theater and part of the show. Anyway, leave some feedback and comments. Please subscribe to me at Lessons, and I'll be back before you know it with more content and material. Thank you.